Hello everyone, this is Suji School, and in this lesson I want to talk about viscosity inside of 3D Max liquid fluid. And to do that I want to use this small thing I used with the Phoenix lessons inside of VFX liquid pack we have on our side. So we have a nice cream. We have a glass over here. It's just invisible because it's used like glass material, so we can't see this. And we have some lights and cameras, just basic light from the side here, and I have a liquid emitter from the top. So what I want to do, I want to create simulation like this. So we have a Chaco which is going from the top. Here we can see our emitter and the shadow. But anyway, we use the same method we used in the first lesson with the liquid, but now I want to play a little bit with viscosity. So I have a liquid emitter and using the path, it's going through this path, and it works over here. I'm assigning a controller and assign my path to the position of my object. Now, if I can here, yes, position, here we have a path. Can add it and create like a movement. So what I need to do, I go to 3D Max Fluids, Max Liquid, create a logo. It doesn't matter which size of this logo. By default we have a sphere there, so we can make like 2 centimeters anyway. But in this case I want to use this geometry as an emitter, so I don't want to use a sphere. So I'm going to my custom type and pick my liquid emitter as an emitter for the liquid, basically. And going to simulation view, let's go over here, and we have some default settings here. And what we have an emitter objects, and basically I want to add colliders in, add my ice cream geometry inside of my colliders list. I have the Chaka parts here, but I hide for a moment. I will use those in a final sim, but for this moment I want to hide them. All right, so what we can do here, we have an emitter, we have a liquid. So if we press start button, we can see how this liquid emitting now. Go into display settings, make it 0.1 size. We have a default setup. We have a default master voxel size like 0.5, this huge size of the voxel, because we have, you know, like 0.4 centimeters radius for my emitter. All right, and we have a liquid. Liquid is just flowing down and going somewhere there underneath this object. So the first thing I want to do, I don't want to add any kind of kill planes here, because in my final sim, what I want to do, that this liquid will go on the surface of the ice cream and it won't go down here. So I don't need any kill planes because there is no particles underneath of this object, this geometry. So to do that, basically with default settings, we have the liquid just falling down because this liquid doesn't have any kind of viscosity. And if you go into the first thing I want to change master voxel size to like 0.3 to increase the particle count, because it's very low for now. If you go in here, we have 174 particles, so it's dramatically a low number. And what I want to do else, and go to liquid parameters, and here we can find viscosity. So basically, how we can change this viscosity parameter to create a nice simulation we need to. So basically, it all depends on a few different parameters. The first thing is the scale. So if you go into customize and unit scale, we have the centimeters here and centimeters here. So 1 unit is 1 centimeters. If we go to cap, to my glass, and go to measure, we can see that it's like at 8 centimeters. Well, basically, it's not bad. It's like a real world scale. It's not an 8 kilometers or something like that. It's pretty fine. So if I go here to viscosity, let's say like 100. So it's too much or not, we can see what it's look like now with viscosity of 100. I just need to wait a little bit. So there is more particle now because of the bigger amount of voxels. Now we see this nice curve, okay? So viscosity is too big for the moment because we have this curvy line. This liquid is, is too viscous, and that's not what we need. Yeah, I want to create some curvy lines here near the surface. When you look on the video, you see those curves over there. So that's fine. When we create a simulation like this with the honey or the chocolate, we need to have those stuff, but not like this. So it's pretty big viscosity. If you want to, we need to decrease it a little bit to 10, let's say. And let's see how it looks now. Let's take a moment. So maybe wait to frame 6 to update automatically. Okay, so now we have more nice result. So this now more look like a viscous liquid. The thing is, the first stuff I want to change my emitter radius to like 0.25 maybe, to make a more thin line. I want a nice thin cylinder here, and with that I want to decrease the maximum size to 2. So we have the smaller emitter, and therefore I want to decrease the master voxel size even more, because the smaller emitter, the less particle I will get on the final. So I'm going back here, maybe put a viscosity like 5 maybe. Let's see how it looks for now. On internet you can find different lists how we can use different density parameters for different liquids. So we have a density over here. By default it's like 1000, so it's a physically density of the liquid in real world. So it's like a basic liquid, okay, it's a standard liquid. But you can find some settings what density have different types of liquids, so the oil, the blood, I don't know, the paint or something like that, the chocolate, the honey, and etc. So in this case I want to put the density a little bit bigger, so it's 1200. It's gonna be good, and increase my density. And now I can stop it and look on that how it works. It's not bad, it's not bad basically. But another thing I want to do, I want to play a little bit with the scale. So why we need to play with viscosity in each scene? In fact, if you look on the simulation and say, okay, I have a viscosity of 5, that's pretty good, I like this simulation, and another time you need to create the scene almost like this with the chocolate or something like that. You put a viscosity of 5, start simulation, you can see that something wrong. The viscosity is too low or too high. So each scene, depending on the scale, you need to define the proper viscosity settings. Let's say if we have a scale in non-physical, right? So I can increase the scale of my scene and we can see what influence we have on the viscosity. So I go here to the scale parameter and I want to put the one scale unit is going to 10 centimeters except of 1. We can see here our scene setup, 1 unit is 1 centimeters. And now except of the system scale, I want to put another scale option. So 1 unit now for my simulation, not for the scene, we have the 1 unit is 10 centimeters. So now when I play and I want to see the result of this, we definitely need to see that we have a less viscosity. So the power of viscosity of 5 is not too much for now. We go here, we can see that there's not too much viscosity now. We have some, but not too much. It's definitely not look like it was a few minutes ago. Yeah, it's still some viscosity there, but not too much, okay? So we don't have those curvy lines here and etc. So to do that, I can change my parameters back and play a little bit with the viscosity of like a 5, maybe a little bit less, maybe 4, something like that. But I want to leave this scale just for the test. So what viscosity amount I need to add now to create nice simulation with this scale? So let's play a little bit. I increase viscosity to like 100. Another thing I want to do, I want to enable my surface tension and maybe leave it as it is by default, like a 0.072. Okay, now restart. And now we can see what has happened. How it looks for now. Another thing we can add here is like a stickiness for the geometry, but with the with viscosity, this parameter sometimes creates some like crashes or unuseful results, because with the low, well, like if you play like with a bandwidth, okay, put it like 0.1, sometimes liquid is like going to the size even without geometry contact or interpretation. It's just sliding here and moving, I don't know, in a different direction. With a very low result like 0.1 or something like that, there is no stickiness. So basically, if we're talking about the viscous liquids, they already have some stickiness to geometry because we have a viscosity. So now it's look a little bit better. We see how it's moving, it sticks to geometry, sliding, slowly sliding, there is no fast movement and etc. So it's still a little bit not too thin as I want. So what we can do, another thing I want to play with is the substeps. In many programs such as RealFlow and etc., we have sometimes we have problems with the viscosity, because the more viscosity we add to the liquid, the more time steps we need to add. The thing is, when we add a viscosity, particles begin to attract to each one. So they try, it's like a force which attracts all particles to each other. And the thing is, sometimes with a low time step parameter, we have some like little explosions or wrong movement for the particles. So definitely the thing is, the more particles I have inside of simulation, the more chance that we're gonna have those explosions. So basically what I want to do, I want to increase the minimum transport steps here. So in many types of liquid viscosity simulation, we have the small movement. So we don't have a very fast viscosity liquid. In many simulations like a chocolate or honey or something like that, there is slow movement when we create like leaking or something like that, and there is no very huge velocities. So it's basically mostly of those particles going to use the minimum substeps, minimum transport steps. Well, maybe not one, but something like that. Definitely not 1000. So what I want to do, I just want to increase the minimum transport steps to like 10. This means that even with very low velocities, particles will calculate with the 10 steps, that will create a more interesting result. So I did want to choose the gravity, and again, sometimes if you have the very fast moving for the liquid, we can use the gravity option to avoid such fast moving. So we can use like a 7 or 8 or 6 gravity to create a more nicely result. All right, another thing I want to use, actually what I want to do, I want to test with my emitter. And the thing is, in my first lesson, I showed that we can duplicate our solver. Okay, so if I want to change some parameters here, but I don't want to change my main simulation. Sometimes when we create a sim and we see, okay, I have the nice sim, but I want to make a little bit of adjustments here. And we begin to make this adjustment, and then finally we have a result which is worse than it was. And we need to get back to this simulation we did earlier. So to doing that, we can duplicate, we can make a clone for my solver and make all adjustments over here. All right, so inside of new solver, it's create new cache, it's create new parameters, so we can play with those parameters. And if it's going something wrong, we just back to my main solver, to my old cache, and let's say, okay, that's fine. Now, but if I want to change, let's say I want to change my emitter type, I want to change my emitter geometry. The thing is, for those solvers, for those two solvers, solver 1 and solver 1 copy, I have a different parameters here. So if I want to change the density, I don't know, like 1500, and going to these solvers, we have go to my emitter object, we have the same density. So I can change my solar parameters over here and they will not be affected on the solar O1. But the thing is, my emitter is set up here inside of liquid attribute tab. And if I delete my liquid emitter, and let's say I want to clone this, I'll make a copy and name it like, I don't know, the thing emitter. All right, and make it thin a little bit. So maybe put like 0.2 and maybe scale it a little bit like here. Okay, so maybe make it a little bit lower. And if I want to delete this emitter inside of solar O1 copy and pick my another thing emitter, the thing is, if I go to my solar O1, we have the same emitter over here. So those changing here inside of liquid attributes will affect on the both solar. But in fact, I want to keep my big emitter, my liquid emitter, for the first simulation, and I want to create another simulation with the lower one. And to do that, I want to add another object, another max liquid over here. And now inside of simulation view, we have two different liquids. All right, so liquid 1 and liquid 2. And now inside of this liquid 1, I want to go to any solar I want. I delete my thin emitter and pick my old one, which is liquid emitter, and close this and open my solar O1 here and pick my thin emitter now on this tab. So now I have two objects, liquid O1 and liquid O2. Inside of one object, I have one emitter, which is liquid emitter. Inside of another, I have another emitter. So we can call those, I don't know, this basic liquid or thin liquid. It doesn't matter in my case. By default, I say all my cache inside of project folder, so we can use that. All right, so now I have a different emitters and I want to put colliders here. So I put my ice cream. And now going into this tab. So I want to, I can clone actually. Yes, I can clone my old emitter or my old object. In this case, I want to put like not a 10, okay? So I have a 10. Let's say I put a 7.5. So not a 10 centimeters, 7.5 centimeters. Make a voxel size like a 0.15 or something like that. I think that will be good because I make this emitter even more thinner. So I decrease the max voxel size because the less emitter we have or the less objects inside of my simulation we have, the less voxel we need to use. All right, so the same transpose substeps, increase to 10. Now go to liquid parameters and enable surface tension and viscosity. So I have a 100 viscosity in the last simulation. So and I have a 10 centimeters per 1 unit. So I decrease the centimeters to 7.5. The same thing I want to use with viscosity. So except of 100, I put 75. And let's say I want to put 0.075 here. So I want to have a nice numbers here. All right, and yeah, the same density. It's like 1200, which is 5 for my simulation now. And that's good. Now let's play a little bit with this. I want to see how it's look now. Is it better or not? And that's what we see, because we it's definitely not look like we have earlier, but the thing is I put a millimeter except of centimeters, so sorry. Again, for displaying, just put 0.1. So that was my mistake, sorry. Again, let's wait a little bit. Now it's looking much better. It's a nice curvy thing here. Nice stickiness, nice viscosity. So what we need to do in the final, the thing is we have low particle amounts. So here we have just like 7,000 particles, so it's a very low amount of particles, and we have a very curvy surface here. So the more particles we're gonna have, the more straight lines will be here. So it will be more smoother result here and here. So before I create the final scene, what I want to do, I'm going to my model and increase those chakras, and because if I have a voxels amount much smaller, and I can use like a 0.5 voxel size. It will increase the particle amounts, and it will make this simulation much better. So I like this viscosity for now, and I like how it looks. Just increase the particles to create a nice mesh. So that's all what we need to do. Just me see all of my settings here, which is fine. And now let's see what do we have. Press start. And that's what we have for now. So I like the simulation. So I can leave my Solar 1 with liquid O2, and I can show you the result of that. So now it's much better. Much better now, okay. So, and we have a pretty big particle amount for this simulation. We see that we have more than 1 million particle. And here we have, come on, let's update, almost 2 million. So on the final we have more than 2 million particle. And we have the nice flat surface. So basically with the cache, with the mesh, we can use the default settings. So I don't need to increase nothing here. We have a nice smooth surface over there. Well, we can increase the resolution factor, but in my case, it will add some noisy things because it's using the more polygons. So it takes some time, but I can show you that. It's great. You see those very tiny, very low noise here. So I decrease my resolution factor back to, and here we have some noisy. So I get back my resolution factor to 1, and maybe I increase the smooth a little bit more like a 4 or 5 to create a more smooth surface. So I'm going to use those parameters to create my cache here, create my mesh. So it's like smoothing of 5 or thick, something like that. And all those parameters by default, they will create a nice result for me. So all what I need is just add some textures for my ice cream, add some materials for those liquids, and we're gonna see how it looks. And that's what we have. I used the V-Ray, just create the nice chocolate material. So this diffuse color, a little bit of reflection, glossiness with 0.9, and that's it actually. So I don't want to take too much time for creating a very nice shader. It's good for me in this moment. So I have this thin setup, like a studio for my perspective, okay. This studio with some lights over here, with the front light, top light, back light, and have the V-Ray dome light. And I add a texture to this dome light. You can select it, okay. I add my V-Ray HDRI with this studio environment here, so I can use it for creating nice reflection stuff. And that's what we have in the final render. Nice choco. Nice ice cream. I have nice smooth lines, smooth reflections over there, which looks fine. So you can see that we can create this simulation pretty fast. Only thing we need to keep in mind that we need to define the viscosity amount depending on the scale of our scene, depending on how huge this liquid has to be. But what I want to show you else, the thing is, we can create not only chocolate simulation or honey or something like that. We can create simulation to create such stuff like this thing on the cakes. So you can create animation for that. So mostly when we need to create some like animation of creating such stuff, we can use like in geometry using the scale options, maybe some thrill or something like that. But in my case, I want to show you how to use how to use our liquid stuff for creating simulation, this kind of simulation. So, sorry, not to clone, object properties, so display the box. What I want to do, I want to create, let me just select liquid and hide it. Come on. Show me something. All right. So I create the animation like that. We have a liquid with a very high viscosity to create like a cream or forms like this on a cakes, or you can use this in the commercials. And to do this animation, all what we need, the first stuff we need an emitter. So I'm going to star. So just simple star inside of our splines. You can find this star. Let me just uncheck this stuff. So we have a star. Now I have a bevel to make a volume object. And inside of my liquid emitter, I use this star like an emitter here. So like in the last lesson, we use the object like an emitter for the liquid. And basically inside of solver, well, with liquid attributes, I add this box like a colliders and I go to solver parameter. The thing is, I decrease the gravity magnitude to 1, so I don't need to push those particles down. I need to stay there in a place so they will not. We need to avoid the leaking. We need to take a form. So I decrease the master voxel size to 0.25. And another changing I add here is the viscosity. So increase the surface tension to 0.25 and increase viscosity with a huge amount. So it's like a 1500 for now, except of 75, we have a 1500 viscosity. It's a very huge amount. So in this situation, it's allowed me to create a nice form here. So it's not going down, it's not smashing, it's not leaking, it's just stay in this position. And I create simulation just for 30 frames. So before frame 30 is create more like a cone or something. You see we lose some details over there. So all what we need is just first few 20 frames or 25 frames. So, and to use, if you want to use these objects, different scenes, maybe to create multiple objects on a cake, I prefer to export this mesh using the Corona or V-Ray. We can do this very simple. Just right click, right mouse button click, and we can select like V-Ray mesh export. And we can export this geometry. We can define that I want to, just make a from 0 to 30 frame. And in effect, if we will add this object in the different scenes, we can say that after the frame 30, you can stay in this position without any kind of changing. And the little thing is, we have this icon position. When we create the export for this mesh, we can hide it again. So we can hide it as a box. If we want to export this mesh and our icon is over here on the right side of this object, when we're gonna export this object using the V-Ray proxy, the pivot point will be over here. So not on the center of object here when we have the logo. So basically I want to put my logo in the same position, which we have the object for export. Therefore, when we will import this object in different scenes, we're gonna have the correct pivot position. So it's not too difficult to change. You can, just send it to object and that will be good. So, but not in my case. All right, animate an export. And in different scenes, like here, continue, we have this animation over here. So I just put the V-Ray proxy and load my geometry using the V-Ray proxy node. So here's the path for my proxies. And we can define the animation playback. What we could do, we can loop this animation. So we have animation on 30 frames. So each time after the frame city is begin with the start again, etc. We can use the play once, like I did in this scene. We can use a ping pong when it's playing one side and another side, so it's forward, backward, and we can use the steal, so we can define the frame, okay, so without any kind of animation. So in my case, I use play once, play a little bit with the geometry to create an FFD, to create nice deformation for this stuff, because we need to decrease the scale of this simulation. So now I have a geometry and I can use all kind of deformers or something like that for creating nice animation for this geometry. And I can copy that, I create a multiple part for that, I can create multiple geometries for that, and etc. So we can use different types of simulation using the different viscosity parameters for the honey, for the chocolate, for cream, or to create this thing like this. So I hope this information will be helpful for you, and let's see in another lessons. In another lesson, we're gonna cover the water surface using the Max Liquid.